there was a Linux patch that gave us an insight into the performance of Vega, but it just really told us some specs more than anything. That there'd be 4 shader engines, 256 TMUs, and 64 ROPs. A lot of information that we kind of already sort of knew about Vega, and that the 8 gigabytes of RAM would be running at 700 megahertz. And there's a 1200 core clock, which we could kind of confirm with some later leaks we'll talk about in a second. But not much different than, nothing new here. Just kind of confirmed some stuff we already sort of knew. The stream processors would be 4096. The performance should be around 12.5 T-flops or 25 floating point 16 T-flops, and the render output being 64, texture mapping being 256. That the memory interface should be a 2048-bit interface, which is a lot higher than Polaris and the RX 480, and that there will be 8 gigabytes of high bandwidth memory too, and that's not even counting the high bandwidth cache that they're talking about. Whether or not that's exactly the high bandwidth memory is what they're calling the high bandwidth cache remains to be seen. But this is all boring, kind of just regular old performance stuff that you can't extrapolate real world performance from. So the juicy stuff would definitely be this next leak, which would be 3D Mark. There was a leak from some Chinese username. First off, a Time Spy leak was there showing a Time Spy score, and there was also a Firestrike score leak for the same username. So before we hop into this, I tried to find any, anything from this Chinese username showing other scores or, what his credentials might be. There's next to nothing to do with that username. So at the very least, I thought I could do a Google Translate on it, and those characters equate to Maple Leaf Blood. So what in the hell does that mean? I don't know, but it's weird because the card's being developed in the United States, and of course the board partners in China are going to have their hands on them. But why they would have their hands on this specific model, or why this is in Chinese, the Chinese person just kind of trying to hide it under that Chinese character, benchmark on the hardware, the reference hardware they're working on. Who knows, but this was uploaded on April 12th, 2017, so, I would take this with a huge grain of salt. I'm inclined to even believe that the scores are barely even real. Maybe they were ran from this card, but there's just so many factors that play into this. So number one, the SKU is the same as the SKU that was running the Doom simulation that AMD showed us. So we know that this is the Vega card. We know that the driver kind of matches up with what the driver should be. And all the other information is sort of in line, so it's semi-believable. But, considering the scores, let's just think that this is from about a month ago's driver. And we know that AMD's had problems with the drivers, and that is one of the reasons why Vega was pushed back a bit. We were kind of expecting it by now, but we know that they have about 80% of their driver developers working on the drivers for Vega for launch, and that makes sense. You don't want a huge debacle, much like they did with the power drive issues on the RX 480, so you want to have a bunch of testers make sure that this is working as tickety-boo, but it doesn't matter how hard you try, something will go wrong at launch, or someone will try and say something. One of our universal carriers has been destroyed. But anyways, what do these scores mean in conjunction with real-world performance? Well, if you look at the Time Spy, which was the first one that we got a 5950 score with a graphics score of 5721. Now, if you look at a similar spec, AMD Ryzen 1800 with a 1080 Ti on it, it gets about double, 10,229 points with a graphics score of 10,610. So, almost double the performance out of this. And if we go and look at the Firestrike score with 14,412 coming from the generic VGA card that is supposed to be Vega, and then in a similarly spec'd computer with a 1080 Ti was with 22,130. So, this is putting the performance of Vega right around the 1070, which is not what we want to hear. I mean, that's not far off from the RX 580 in terms of performance. We wanted something that was really going to push this, and this is supposed to be Vega 10. And Vega 10 is supposed to be their best SKU. So, what's going on here? Well, number one, we definitely know that that Vega is supposed to clock higher than Polaris. And Polaris is clocking with the launch of the 580 somewhere around 1300 megahertz. So we've been speculating that Vega should get around 1500 megahertz minimum. So if you kind of figure that out, then this card is running at 20% of the performance that Vega should be running at. So that would increase the scores a bit, maybe bring it closer to a 1080 non-TI, which is all well and good. But then also keep in mind, this is probably development hardware. This is probably a driver that is not fully optimized for the system. So it keeps eking closer and closer to the performance of a 1080 Ti. Also, we have no idea this could have, a cooler on it that, isn't working exactly in its favor. Maybe board partner cards for Vega will end up being even better, or the overclocking headroom might be insane. Also, whether or not the memory is running at its full efficiency, and they've got everything worked out in that department. So, if these specs are right and these scores are right, there's nothing to worry about. We'll definitely be seeing a lot more than these preliminary scores will, kind of indicate. And I wouldn't worry too much. But I would also just say that, the validity of this, for all we know, this could be some Chinese hacker that figured out how to put scores into 3D Mark and, just decided to make a funny username, Maple Leaf Blood, and upload some scores with the, fill in the blanks from what we already know about Vega, just to see how far it will go as a joke. So there's nothing that's indicating that this is real information. Last thing I wanted to say is, you know what? We see that NVIDIA is sort of shaking. They are pushing, they brought up the release times for the 1080 Ti and the Titan XP, especially the Titan XP. And they are kind of hinting at Volta already. And they're gearing up for what could be another Ryzen situation where Intel was not prepared for Ryzen to do very well. They thought Kaby Lake was just going to be automatically faster. They weren't thinking the whole cores versus frequency and how that actually could affect them in the end. And now they're sitting back, twiddling their thumbs with Optane being the latest thing you've heard from Intel. So NVIDIA is definitely trying to make sure that they don't have that, situation happening. And they want to make sure that everyone is, assured that their hardware, if it is being they will have something up their sleeves to beat it fairly soon as Q3 or Q4 2017, or definitely by 2018. So this is all good news. This probably means Vega is what it is, they say it is, and we're going to have some 1080 performance for somewhere around $500. Now there also is this rumor that there's still going to be a water-cooled version of this HBM situation from AMD, and what I worry about there is if the top-of-the-line card is like the R9 Fury X, and we end up having this water-cooled monster that just barely keeps up with the 1080 Ti, we're gonna have a Fury all over again, and we're back to the drawing board. I really hope that that isn't the case, and that if there is a water-cooled version, it's some insane version that costs, something like the Titan, close to the Titan, and, it's really only for enthusiasts. And, AMD has pulled those kind of tricks before, and it might be possible that that's what's happening. So, I'll throw it back to the studio. I hope you guys enjoyed the leaks and all this information. Well, so those are my thoughts. On RX Vega, don't you wish that this really was Vega and we could just get this all out of the way? I am kind of tired of hearing about it, but remember, you know, Ryzen wasn't so long ago, and we were all hyped on that. Did a pretty good job. I think this Vega will do a pretty good. This is just a video card. I think it will do a pretty good job, but you know, in the meantime, all we have is to just kind of grasp onto.
The enemy are attacking an emplacement.
Them all super grain of salt, but in the end, I think my predictions will hold true in that Vega will be an amazing scalable platform, much like the GCN architecture first was in the 70, 90, 79, 70, and how that was very scalable up until now. It'll be a good architecture for, it'll have to make, you know, NVIDIA come back with something crazier, but it remains to be seen whether it will actually be the fastest graphics card. Leave comments below if you think I'm crazy. My name is Watch Timmy Joe, or that's my handle on Instagram and Twitter. You guys can leave your comments below. I have Amazon affiliate links to my Ryzen build, and I guarantee you, as soon as Vega's out, I'm going to be getting my hands on one. Whether or not it's the most expensive, or I don't know if there's a second tier, or there's a water-cooled one that's just like, I don't know, like the Titan. I'm not sure, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be an awesome time to be a computer enthusiast, as I always say. So you guys have a nice day, and I'm going to go bye.
Is that time? Enjoy over and through things. Throw it, driver, right now. Give it a super early. Run! Holding a buck, you dozy buggers! Sappers, fall back. Ain't got order, you fucking idiot. Nice little job for us. Take that position. We've orders to move.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul, and in this Begin Critical video we're going to be discussing RX Vega again. Specifically, there are most likely at least 3 distinctive Radeon RX Vega SKUs, with the slowest being slightly faster than GTX 1070, while the fastest is giving a GTX 1080 Ti a run for its money. It's actually slightly faster than that. We'll go into the benchmarks and how we come to those conclusions in just a moment. And then we're going to finish the video discussing the Xbox Scorpio, specifically the development kit. It's not the biggest piece of news, but it's kind of interesting because the development kit, we actually have an overview, a video, of the entire development kit, and it includes, out of all the things in the world, a frame rate counter on the front, but we'll go into that in just a moment. First things first, let's talk about Vega 10. So, just all on the same page, because I am still getting a few messages asking to explain the whole Vega situation. So, I'm going to give you a too long didn't read. Vega 10 is the high end, Vega 11 is the slightly lower end of the cards. Polaris is the predecessor to Vega, and they are very different architectures. So, the early reports, and this is perhaps the more confusing, is that Vega and Polaris were very similar to one another, with Vega essentially being a very small evolution compared to Polaris. It would have a large number of compute units, in other words, more than 36 of the RX 480, also known as Polaris 10, but with a different memory controller and HBM2 memory. That was the original rumours, which persisted for a number of months, quite a long time in fact. That wasn't the case, and instead we've now found out that Vega is essentially an entire new architecture. It's featuring NCU, which is about the largest jump, from AMD's own words, not my own. When I was discussing this with AMD, that's what they told me, is about the largest jump they've actually had in a graphics architecture since the introduction of GCN. Okay, now we're up to that. What do we know about the card itself? Well, foregoing the specifications for a moment, a couple of folks actually messaged me regarding further benchmarks for the various GPUs. So, this tells us that there are at least 3 different variants of Vega. Now, the important thing is that the first 4 digits of the codename are all the same. They are 687F. The difference lies within the final 2 digits, or I guess final 2 numbers. They are C1, C2, and C3. It would appear that the graphics cards go in order of magnitude. So the highest end card is faster than the GTX 1080 Ti, whereas the lower end card obviously isn't as fast as the GTX 1080 Ti, it's just slightly pipping a GTX 1070 to the post. We have a couple of benchmarks which give it a detailed explanation. For example, in TimeSpy 1.0, the card which we assume to be the high-end Vega is getting 9753. To put that into any level of context, a standard GTX 1080 Ti, I say standard as in it's not manufacturer overclocked, so if you was to buy like an Acer Strix or, you know, some Gaming X variant of the card, obviously those have higher clock speeds, and that's an unfair comparison because you're already giving a final retail card, you know, that extra kick, which, you know, let's face it, is not exactly fair. But a GTX 1080 Ti gets around 9500. Compare that to a 1080 which gets around 7400, or finally a 1070 which gets around 6000. The lower end part gets around 6000 for Vega as well. So in short, these cards are very interchangeable with the GTX 1080 or the GTX Pascal series. There are a couple of caveats, and you probably can guess what those are immediately. The first is the score with the high-end Vega, whatever that's end up being called, is with a Ryzen 7 1700X, whereas the other one, the lower-end Vega, has a CPU of a Ryzen 7 1800X. Does that make any tangible or palpable difference? We don't know, because we don't know the rest of the specifications of the card, we don't know overheads, we don't know memory timings, we don't know a lot of stuff. And so because we don't know that information, it's very difficult to start making meaningful comparisons. For example, we don't know whether the Creators Update has been applied to Windows, we don't know whether, you know, the memory timings was tight, we don't know if it's the same memory or running at the same clock speed, we don't know drive dimensions. And also the same processor doesn't denote the same clock speed. So you could still have a Ryzen 7 1700 and just overclock at the same speed as like a 1700X or even an 1800X. And yes, you know, really the games or whatever would detect a Ryzen 7 1700, but the clock speed, well, yeah, I think you get where I'm going with this. So overall, this reinforces previous rumours that we'd heard that the C3 derivative is around on par with a GTX 1070. And this is why I said, you know, just a couple of days ago that I'm not worried about these reports. We don't know the circumstances of the report, or the benchmarks to be more accurate. Does that mean that I feel that Vega has got anything left in the tank? Probably. I'm basing this upon the fact that the drivers are not, you know, probably fully mature, they're not retail ready. I'm not going to, however, say that it's going to be 40% or whatever fast in Pascal, because honestly I don't know, I do not have Vega in my hands. The big questions for me regarding Vega, and there are a number of them, but I guess the three largest ones. A, what is the clock speed running at the moment? The early reports tell us, and you know, basic math and analysis tell us that Vega should be hitting at least 1500 megahertz, probably around 1530, to hit the 12.5 T-flops of touted performance, FP32 performance. Is this the case? Are they running at this clock speed now? Are they running at lower clock speeds, for example 1200 megahertz, 1300 megahertz? Well, one benchmark does tell us that the GPU is running at 1200 megahertz, but whether that's being misreported or not, we don't know. Therefore, I'm not confident to say that it's running at 1200 megahertz, because at the end of the day, beta drivers, whether 3D Mark is 100% detecting the clock speeds, I'm not 100%, you know, ready to say that. First, second thing, what is the situation with the actual memory itself, and I'm sorry, with the actual hardware itself? What by which I mean, is everything finished? Are there any, you know, logic flaws in the GPU? Are there any problems? For example, is some of the cache disabled? Do they have problems with the some of the compute units not working? Whatever the case may be, like, is there a couple of inherent flaws they're trying to tweak before the final retail ready silicon goes onto our shelves? Last point, what is the state of the drivers? The early reports with the drivers when Vega was very first shown off back in the day with both the Doom demos and the Star Wars demos was well, that Vega drivers sucked. They were essentially Fiji drivers, just with a few tweaks here and there and a couple of patches here and there, and basically that meant that you had quite high CPU overhead, and presumably that was also hurting the GPU's performance as well. Whether that's the case anymore, whether they're still really for that to work. Don't forget, just a small tweak in drivers can increase performance 10, 15, 20%. And that's not anything new. Like, even right now, with the Pascal architecture and the Polaris architecture as they are, AMD and Nvidia, to both of the company's credits, are still releasing driver updates to improve performance of games which are just coming out. So it wouldn't surprise me if AMD still has some tweaking left in the tank. Is that the case? We don't know, ultimately. Vega is looking to be one of those graphics architectures where, frankly, I'm hoping it's going to be more powerful than Pascal. How much more? Well, and this is kind of the problem. It depends on the release date of Volta. So, for example, if Volta is going to launch this year, let's just for the sake of argument say Volta launches, let's be pretty optimistic for the sake of this, let's say October, then really, if Volta is even 25% faster than Pascal, that means AMD are going to be in some real problems if Vega is not significantly faster than Pascal right now. On the other hand, if Volta does get some problems behind its release, and you know, I guess in the eyes of AMD they kind of hope it does, and it doesn't launch till, let's say, February next year, so let's be, you know, very conservative with the release date of Volta, although a lot of reports are telling us it will launch this year, but let's assume that those reports are bogus and say that very conservatively it's launching next year. Then I guess Vega isn't such a big deal if it's not massively faster than Pascal, even if it's like 10%, because that means that AMD can say, hey, we've still got the fastest graphics card, and that means that, of course, Nvidia are going to have to cut their prices. So it's all kind of up in the air at the moment. The last thing I'd like to say to you, and this one is pretty obvious, this is not demonstrations with a wide suite of games. We are not looking at this running, let's say, Doom, we're not looking at this running Ashes of Singularity with Tomb Raider in there, and Hitman, and God knows whatever else. No, these are just a couple of benchmarks, and I'm going to make an assumption on the part of AMD here that they're probably running these demos more to get an in-house example of the performance rather than actually comparing it against another architecture. They're probably trying to figure out, okay, if we tweak this, what's happening on the back end? Is this improving performance? Okay, cool. You know, is it still stable when we're doing this? You know, does it crash when I'm running that? And it's just pretty easy to run a demo like Time Spy rather than having to play the games. It's just good just to be able to click a button, and you know, it's a very strenuous and very stable graphics workload. In other words, you know that if, for example, you get visual artifacts on this particular section, it's going to be consistent in that section, so you can tweak something. So you can say, okay, obviously there's a problem with like the pipeline here, or there's, you know, obviously this particular engineering sample has problems with, let's say, some of the TMUs, so maybe let's try to save those nodes and try doing it again, or whatever. Finally, and this one's a very quick video, part of the video rather, let's talk about Project Scorpio, shall we? So, Project Scorpio, I don't think I need to tell you this, but I will, for those who don't know, is the evolved version of Xbox One. It is featuring a vastly more powerful CPU, has 12 GB of GDDR5 memory, and overall is supposedly going to kick ass. The figure we're always hearing, of course, is the 6 teraflops of floating point performance, and according to Phil Spencer, they have confirmed they are going to be fully unveiling Scorpio at E3 this year. So there is a very short video that's popped up on the internet, thanks to Jez Corden, not Gordon, which shows the, well, development kit of Scorpio. And I actually think it looks really cool. Another really interesting thing is that we actually have a frame rate counter on it, combined with read and write speeds, which I'm assuming are going to be for like the hard drive or what have you. FPS is locked at 60 pretty much in the video we're seeing here. There are already calls of people saying, I would love to see this frame rate counter in the final Scorpio build. I don't necessarily know if it will be, because obviously that's going to increase the cost, and You say that you're happy to eat the cost. Well, yeah, let's say that this can increase the cost like $10, $20, $30. We don't know how much it will cost, but it's probably going to increase it somewhat. Plus, it also might increase the overheads of the system as well. Then Microsoft may not decide to. Either way, it does look kind of cool. And I think an LCD for other uses as well, if it wasn't just for the bragging purposes of like frame rate. So let's say it was to do other bits and pieces, let's say game DVR, or whether the console was on, or the charge of your controllers. That would be kind of nice actually. On-screen display of showing the battery power of each of the controllers that's plugged in, what the Wi-Fi signal is like. Those type of things would be kind of nice to be able to just toggle through the display. And yes, of course you can get those on-screen display by pressing the Xbox button or whatever, but you know, sometimes you just want to quickly glance. But let's face it, for the most part you're not exactly going to be seeing that anyway. Last thing, and this one's probably going to break a lot of people's hearts, well I guess it depends on if you like the development kit aesthetic or not. It's a development kit, so for all we know it's not going to look like that at all, and it could actually have the, you know, be inside a metal alligator type of shell for all we know in the final revision. Kind of curious actually on how it looks, because a lot of people blasted the looks of the original Xbox One. I actually didn't mind it at all. I mean, I'm recording this actually looking at a PlayStation 4, the vanilla version, the original version, although I do have the PS4 Pro, and I didn't mind either console. I thought both looked kind of nice. I did think the Xbox One was a little big for my taste, but personally I kind of like the look of it. But then again, I was one of those weird people, really weird people, that actually like the Duke controller of the Xbox, the original Xbox. So I probably am not the best person. I don't know, it just felt comfortable in my hand. I've got pretty large hands, so it felt kind of nice to me. Although I will admit, the redesigned controller for the Xbox actually felt really nice. And very off topic, I don't understand physically how they went from the D-pad of the original Xbox, especially the redesigned controller, to the D-pad of the 360. I don't understand what they were thinking, because the original D-pad for the Xbox was actually pretty nice, and then you went to the 360 pad and you were playing a game like Street Fighter and you're like, well, I did have skin on my thumbs at the beginning of this, not so much now. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Been a bit rambly, but yeah, it was a thing. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.
Running in RAID for 4 terabytes. They're working with a 200 in damn near real time. To put it in perspective,
Churchill taking over, River. Let them know we're coming. There's no sneaking about in one of these. Drive. Home, James, and don't spare the horses. Well, there's Beeline over there. Come on, my beauty, you can go little faster. Time to leave. Churchill here. Where do you want? Off we go. Put your foot down. Get moving. This isn't a bloody hearse. Heavy tank awaiting orders. Let's be off. Under fire! Anti-tank charges! Mustang shots! Florry driver, right now! Ready? This is a tank. Drive over and through things. Move. Come on, you armored tank! Get moving! Anyone gets in the way, squash him! Give it some throttle! Drive on! Clever buggers! Trying to walk around the flanks!
Grenade! Down, Salmon!
We've lost a unit.
Under fire! Another fired! Loaded and ready! Give us a wheelie! Let's move the bloody tank! Now! Watch our sides! Just let it go! No enemy spotted! Look out right now! Trying to flank us! Come on, you armored tank! Get moving! Get us moving! Tank over towards us! What's with this bugger?
Fire the beast! Check your fucking back! Move, man! Be quick about it, Salmon! Christ! Grenades!
Return bomb on the way! Duck everyone! Tank commander awaiting next order.
Run!
Move! Move! While we're still young! Loaded and ready! Florry driver, right now!
Wireless intercepts put Harry Hun on 200 points.
Move into a battle position. Good shooter. Buggering up now. Give it some throttle. Move. Ready for instructions. Is that tank? Drive over and through things. Get us moving now, you twat!
The enemy are attacking one of our forward positions.
Just bloody go! Return more away! Awaiting orders! Take it over!
Tank's been knocked for 6. The demolitions team has been sent.
Engineers carrying out repairs.
Everything's stoked. We got a bit of a drive on. We're moving position. How's the fuel?